We're back with Senator John McCain. Welcome back to the program. A lot to discuss here, a lot to react to. Let's get to your big issue this week, the issue of withdrawal. You heard Secretary Gates say here today, July 2011 is a date certain for the beginning of the withdrawal. Do you have a problem with that?
Yes, but let me also say, David, I support the President's decision. I think it's the right decision. I think that it can lead to success. It's a tough decision on his part to send young Americans into harm's way. As Secretary Gates said, casualties will go up tragically, but I think he made the right decision. And I think that the reality is he's not only a tough decision to send young Americans into harm's way, but his significant elements of his own party are opposed. So I strongly support the decision. The problem with the date certain now is that not only there's a problem with that itself, but there's a significant contribution between what Secretaries Gates and Clinton were saying and what the President's spokesperson... Contradiction between what his spokesperson said just a couple of days ago when he said, he said, I'm directly quoting the President, that the withdrawal date is chiseled in stone, and I am the chiseler. Now that's pretty straightforward. So what has that done? It has caused reactions such as you saw with the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Policymakers throughout the region, Pakistan, India, Iran, as well as Afghanistan, are now trying to figure out whether they can really go all in and support this effort, or do they have to accommodate, because if we leave, they have to stay in the region. So it needs to be resolved. It needs to be resolved in this way, that we will not leave on a date certain, but we have every confidence, I have every confidence within a year to 18 months we can achieve significant success. We were able to do that in Iraq. And we will leave and not allow the Taliban to make comments like Taliban prisoners are saying, you've got the watches and we have the time. We don't want to send that message.
But the President responded to this week privately and during his address to the nation, saying, if you just use that logic, then that's the rationale for forever war. Then you don't ever leave.
Well, the rationale for war is to break the enemy's will. That's the whole rationale for war. Do you break the enemy's will by saying we're going to be there, or send a message we're going to be there for a year and a half or so, and then we're going to begin to leave no matter what the circumstances are? Or do you tell them we're going to win and we're going to break your will and then we're going to leave? That's a huge factor in the conduct of war, especially when you're conducting counterinsurgency.
Earlier this fall, I did an interview with you here in Washington on this topic, and I want to show you what you said at that point and ask you about it.
I am convinced we could start to see signs of success in a year to 18 months.
And if we don't at that point?
Well, then I think we have to make a decision at that time, as if we don't.
How is that different from what you said to what the President is saying now?
Well, I'm saying that we have to make a decision as to what adjustments we need to make to win. If we are not succeeding with one strategy, then obviously we have to adjust that strategy. But as I said, I am confident, as I said in our interview then, a year to year and a half, at great tragic loss of brave young Americans, we will be able to succeed, and we will be able to prevent Afghanistan from returning to a base of al-Qaeda and attacks on the United States of America and our allies, not to mention what the Taliban subject to the Afghan people to, which is immense cruelty.
Americans knew why they were going to war in Afghanistan after 9/11.
Yes.
Today it's really much more of a question mark. If you look at the polling, Americans do not support this.
Yes.
What is the likelihood?
Could I just interrupt that? The President, as I expected, with a very effective speech and an appropriate venue at West Point, I think has also moved those numbers in more favorably in the right direction.
What is the likelihood of another terrorist attack on America from that region, Afghanistan, Pakistan, as things stand now?
I think that the areas around Pakistan, Afghan border is still a place where al-Qaeda and other Islamic extremist elements can hang out. But I think they're on the defensive And it's a far different situation than if we left and allowed them to restore these safe havens without any threat being mounted against them. And not to mention the Pakistani nuclear inventory and all the implications of that.
To those who oppose this war, there are challenging a couple of assumptions. The assumption that Hamid Karzai, the president of Afghanistan, who the United States says is corrupt, who stole the election, who is not proven capable of standing up a security force, who cannot secure most of the country, is somehow going to become a different leader, and that Afghanistan becomes a different country. That Pakistan, which supported the Taliban for years, which is still apparently hedging its bet about going after the Taliban and the baddest of the bad in the tribal areas, somehow becomes a different country. Why do you assume those two things happen?
Well, first of all, because when we started the surge, Maliki was, there was serious talk about having to replace him. There was no government in Iraq when the surge started. It was just sectarian violence. Governments succeed with success. When you are able to provide an environment of security to the clear, hold, and build strategy, then governments do improve. They're not all perfect. One of the reasons why we have the problems we have is because of the corruption, and one breeds the other. As far as Pakistan is concerned, as Secretary Clinton pointed out, the Pakistanis have been doing much better, much better. They've been doing everything we want? No. But they've been improving much better. There are really internal domestic politics that frighten me in a way because of the lack of Zardari's immunity expiring and all of those aspects of it. But I believe if we send a clear signal, we're going to do what's necessary. We are not leaving until we succeed, and that does not mean an open-ended commitment. It means we will adjust our strategy over time. But to send the message that you are going to leave at a certain date is not the way to convince the enemy that you're there to beat them.
You talk about Pakistan. Secretary Gates says it has been years since there has been solid intelligence about the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden. How important is he to getting this mission? Why don't we have better intelligence? And is it the Pakistanis' fault? Do they know where he is, and are we not finding out about it because of that?
I know as much as you do, okay? Everybody that I know, and every time I'm in the region, I ask that question of people who are knowledgeable. They say that he moves back and forth. They say he has concentric circles of people who warn him. If you look at that terrain, it's the most difficult and rugged terrain in the world. But he is also unable to establish a base for training and equipping people who would come to and make attacks on the United States and our allies. Yes, I think it's important to get him. I think we need to get him. But don't think that al-Qaeda could not flourish without him if we give them a safe haven in Afghanistan or Pakistan.
More broadly, when you evaluate the president's performance and his approach to this, do you agree with some who say he's made a decision to downsize the war on terror, and does that make you uncomfortable?
I don't have any indication of that. As I said, I respect the decision and support the decision he made. It's behind us now, but that long, drawn-out process was not helpful to our friends and our enemies, or to...
Do you think that helped the enemy, that it took as long as it did?
I don't think it. I think it made, because I heard from him all the time, it made our allies very uneasy as to what we were going to do. And it wasn't just the length of time, the leak of secret cables from our ambassador in Kabul saying we shouldn't send reinforcement. That leads to a certain turmoil. But look, that's behind us. The president made the decision. I support it.
I want to, if we could, do an express round of the Straight Talk Express on some other news items. So if we can just hit these things rather quickly, because there's a lot of other news as well. Is there a jobs bill that you could support?
If it has to do with tax cuts and small business creation, corporate tax cuts, small business tax cuts, absolutely. And the housing, any effort we can towards reducing the problems in the housing home loan mortgage market. 48% of the home loan mortgages in my state of Arizona are underwater. That's unacceptable, and it's a failure on the part of TARP.
Is stimulus working?
No.
You don't think it is?
Well, I mean, I guess if you throw enough money at anything, there's some result, but it's certainly not. Look, by their own figures, the administration said unemployment would be at 8%. It's now at 10. It's at 10%. I hope it's going to recover, but we have to. I think it's been act of generational theft that we have laid on our children and our grandchildren.
Okay, a few more. Do you support Ben Bernanke for a second term as Fed chief?
I want to examine it some more. I had a good meeting with him, but I'd like to examine the record. I'm very disappointed in what's happened with some of their proposals, because now Wall Street's doing great. Billions in bonuses, all kinds of things. And Main Street, I guarantee you, come with me to Phoenix, Arizona, Flagstaff, Yuma. I'll tell you that Mr. Bernanke's policies have not helped the businesses in my state.
Will health care reform pass with a public option?
I don't know. I don't know. The American public opinion is swinging more and more against it. We're fighting the good fight. We are not delaying, but this is one of probably the most interesting domestic discussions I've ever been in my career in the United States Senate, and frankly, it's been vigorous and it's been enjoyable.
You think he'll get it, though? You think he'll get reform in some capacity?
I don't know. I don't know the answer. You still count it all up and down. If Senator Reid, who's very good at his job, gets 60 votes, then he has 60 Democrats. But I am hopeful that American public opinion will be heard in the United States Senate.
And for your political analyst hat on, do you think that Sarah Palin's brand of conservatism is what the Republican Party needs to regain power in the midterms and ultimately in 2012?
I think that Sarah Palin has earned herself a very big place in the Republican political scene. I'm proud of her. I am entertained every time I see these people attack her and attack her and attack her. She's irrelevant, but they continue to attack her. I am so proud of her and the work that she is doing.
You thought her book was fair?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I enjoyed her book.
Because she kind of felt like she was thrown under the bus by the McCain campaign at some level.
Listen, we have a wonderful relationship. Todd and Sarah and I just saw her recently, and I'm very proud of her. And we need vigorous discussion and debate in the Republican Party. She's going to be a big part of that discussion and debate in the future.
All right, Senator McCain, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Up next.